This is the Mental Metal Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Toman. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Metal Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. Let's go, metalheads. It is the Mental Metal Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Toman, here again with another episode that I'm excited about. Sports are coming. We're getting into August and things are coming, and I'm getting a little busier with I got the clients. It gets, that's when I start to get more, student athletes working on that mental coaching. We're getting into that, the sports, and you see things coming, and, parents and athletes start to get a hold of me, and I love it. If you are interested at all, in that service, give me a call. I always do the first session is always free. We'll get the parent, we'll get the kid, we'll get both on there together. We, talk about it, what it's going to look like. I want to make sure it's a good fit. Not every situation is great, I feel, for mental coaching for a student athlete, just for different reasons. We have to mesh really well. This is a pretty personal stuff, so it has to be a good mesh, and we have to make sure that we're a good fit for each other before we do that. But that's why I always, put that first session is out there free. I want to make sure it's we're not going to waste anybody's time or money. And hey, but I do love it when I get the kids going and they're excited. It's a great situation for them. It's more, I work with athletes on mental performance coaching, but it is about so much more than athletics. I love still getting texts and reviews and stuff from my former athletes that have gone on and just tell me about how much they still enjoy. They still think about the stuff we've talked about in the coaching sessions. And I just love that. So, but I'm also busy right now doing some professional development going around. That's this time of year. And I've got several schools I'm speaking to in August, and we'll have several coming up in various months throughout the years. I do my professional development, Live Your 100 with educators, which really helps them out to just focus on what they can control in the ever-changing world of education. And then also for parents, August 28th, I have my how to use praise to raise mentally tough kids. It's a virtual webinar. It's free. That doesn't mean it's not worth something. It's something I really want to put out there. So I put it out there free so anybody can learn a little bit about, how I operate, some of the things about what parents can do to help their kids grow mentally tough. Because a lot of time as parents, we like to complain about the kids these days, right? And the situation these days. Well, we're the ones raising those kids. So it's I don't want to say it's our fault, but it's partly on us. So let's see what we can do about it. And I've got some pretty good tips there for that. But as I mentioned, it is August and we're getting back into sports, which means for the boys, we're really getting into some cross country, some football, of course. But for the ladies, it's volleyball. And volleyball for me growing up and, for my kids growing up, and volleyball was a big deal. We love volleyball in my house. My sister was a very good college volleyball player. So I used to love it and go watch her play and watch it. My wife went and played college volleyball as well. She was a fantastic high school volleyball player. She's extremely humble and wouldn't say it, but I can remember, the first time I go with her into her high school and she hadn't said a word, and I'm just walking and there's her name on the record board for kills and stuff. I'm like, you said you played and you were good, but come on. And of course she brushes it off. So, but Yeah, so she loves it. My daughter played volleyball, played for a really good program, and so I used to go and do some announcing and public address announcing at some volleyball games. I love the feel of a good volleyball game. So, but one thing I do know about the volleyball is in the fall when the boys are out there and we have all these stipulations about how long they can practice, how many water breaks they need, and the heat and all that for the football players. And I get it. It's you have to have it, but we're stepping outside in the heat, and then nobody notices or pays attention to the ladies in the gym with no AC, almost no air moving, and it's just hotter than Hades in there. And they're out there, the boys are taking their break every once in a while, and the girls are just grinding it. I mean, getting after it. And I think that sometimes they get the short end of the deal on who needs to be paid attention to, uh, but yeah, high school volleyball, I love it. And one of the things about high school volleyball and volleyball in Illinois and what I saw is the junior high volleyball and the high school volleyball run at different seasons. So one's in the fall, and then the junior high is like late winter type situation. And that allows a lot of high school coaches to also coach their junior high programs. And everybody knows, like in basketball and stuff, it's great if the head coach for a school or a football coach has kind of his or her fingers in the pie of the in the kitchen a little bit, making sure that the junior high and the feeder programs are kind of running their system. And good programs do that. But in high school volleyball, and it's the same for baseball and softball, but we're talking about volleyball here. It allows the coach, if you're the high school coach, to be the junior high coach, which you really have control of your program. And not all do it, but some do it. And some really lean into it. And my guest today is one of those. And her name is Jennifer Hayes, and she coaches for Hartsbure-Emden, shortened, we call it Hartem. And she's not only the high school coach and the junior high coach, but she like runs everything all the way down to third grade and does their summer stuff. And like, she is the volleyball program. Sure, she has assistants. She'll talk about her stuff, but she is the face of the volleyball program in that town. And I know several people in Hartem. No offense to anybody, but when I say the word town, that is a stretch by anybody's standards. It is an unbelievably small town with a very, very small enrollment. It has not, their enrollment has not exceeded 100 kids in the school, probably in maybe ever. I don't know. I know at least in the last 20, 30 years, at least. We're talking about a very small school that's still able to keep their doors open and keep going. And I'm sure they struggle at times just getting teachers and all that. But one thing that hasn't struggled is the volleyball program. It has been top notch for decades. And what they are able to do against teams 3, 4, 5 or more times their size is astounding. The culture that they have built and the reputation that they've built is amazing. You'll hear Coach Hayes talk about it. It existed before her, but I think she took it to another level. And speaking of Coach Hayes, as small as the town is in size, her intensity is the opposite, is inversely proportional. I would tell you that. I grew up playing basketball in Southern Illinois, small schools. And so that's what it was. I know passionate individuals. I know passionate coaches, fans, everything, like players. Passion was there for sports. I mean, I went to a small school, and I mean, one of our, we had board members get kicked out of games because they were so passionate. And I'm not advocating that, but I'm just saying I have seen passionate individuals, and I have never seen any coach as passionate as Jennifer Hayes is with her teams and Hartem volleyball. My first experience with her is my daughter's a year younger than hers. And I was an AD. And so we would play Jennifer's teams. And my first experience was I was doing something and she called a timeout, and I, I've never seen it. Gyms can be loud with people there. She is able to she is so loud and passionate and let's be honest, borderline crazy. That her voice carries so loud and with so much passion that I have seen entire gyms fall dead silent to listen to her tirade, if you want to put it that way. And tirade may not be the right word, because as she'll talk about it, it's positive, but it's not necessarily something that you want directed at you. She is that passionate, and as passionate as she is, it's that successful. Like, you're going to hear about like the amount of between junior high and high school, like state championships and stuff. It's like one a year for 30 years. It's a little ridiculous, and they really, she really knows how to build a culture. And the reason I wanted to have her on was not just about the culture, but she works with athletes from, again, I think she says when they start like first or second grade, all the way to high school. And what I really want to talk to her about is, how do you get that sort of the expectations you need for a culture, and how do you filter that throughout the years? How do you can't coach a kindergartner or first grader like you do a senior in high school, right? But yet you have to have the expectations for the program. And that's what I want to ask her is, how do expectations change as kids get older, and to support and build your program? So that's what it's about. And it's a great interview. Again, she's a passionate individual, knowledgeable individual, and a great coach. So stick around. I'll catch you on the other side with some breakdown on it. And for now, just enjoy the interview with Hartem volleyball head coach, Jennifer Hayes. The Mental Metal Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Quick Cut. Quick Cut is the new alternative to Huddle. It's no secret why Quick Cut is the fastest growing platform in the country. Their video analysis platform has everything you need. Plus, you'll get triple the storage at about half the price. And now get even more when you use the promo code 50hours for 50 hours of free video storage. Make the switch. You'll be glad you did. Visit quickcut.com today. As parents, we love to joke about how our kids have selective hearing. Talk about ice cream or Christmas presents, and they are all ears. But ask them to take the trash out or walk the dog, and suddenly it is like you do not exist. I know it may not seem like it, but your child hears your voice. Just make sure that your words are worth listening to. And now, to learn more, you can join me in my webinar on how to use praise to raise mentally tough athletes. It's a guide for parents, and you can learn proven tips that will cultivate a positive attitude and a growth mindset in your young athlete. So join me for the free webinar on August 28th, 2023 at 7 o'clock Central. Look for the link to register, and I hope to see you there. And we are back on the Mental Metal Podcast with Coach Jennifer Hayes of Hartsbure-Emden. If you are familiar with volleyball in Central Illinois, she probably doesn't need much of an introduction to you. But if you're not, we'll go ahead and do that anyway. Hartsbure-Emden has been a powerhouse for small school volleyball in Illinois for a long time, and that is specifically why I've got Coach Hayes on here. Is Coach Hayes runs the program basically from if you're a volleyball player in Hartsburg, you like Coach Hayes is your coach probably from birth until you leave, for college. So that gives me, or it had me with the idea that Coach Hayes has a very unique perspective on the expectations that it is okay to have, or the expectations to put on a kid in athletics, from the mental toughness aspect, from the culture aspect, and make no mistake about it. When I think about culture, the growth of culture and the expectations, Hartsburg-Emden is one of the just high on my list for schools that are able to do that and grow. So, Coach, welcome to the podcast. It's excited. We've been now friends for a little while, and as you know, your daughter was on my podcast a bit just a couple weeks ago. And what I need from you first is give me the rundown. I know how important Hartsburg-Emden, or how important volleyball is in that town, but how long have you been associated with Hartsburg-Emden volleyball and that program, and kind of give me some of that background, because I know how important it is to the school and to the community, but I want to hear it from your perspective.
Sure. I am an Hartsburg-Emden native, born here, lived here, went to school here. Shortly after getting married, we moved closer to Peoria, but I worked here, and I swore that I would never come back. And yet right out of college, I took a third grade teaching job and the coaching job. And actually I started coaching my senior year in college because I didn't like the direction that my school was going. And I said I would give it 5 years, and 30 years later, I'm still here. So Hartsburg-Emden volleyball really for me started in third grade. Mrs. Coach Lisa Miller took over the program. She was young, she was excitable, and at that point, volleyball was really pretty new. And she took our high school, at that point was a 2-class system, to the state tournament. It was the first time in Hartsburg-Emden sports history, really, that something went that far. And I just remember getting soaked up into the whole atmosphere. We had fan buses, and everybody was in the community were on the buses and painted the cars. And we had rallies for the high school girls at that time. And then the state tournament was at the Springfield Civic Center. And I remember the chants and just all the cheers and being in the stands. And it was just like, that's what I want to be a part of. So really, that's my first major memory. I started volleyball for Mrs. Miller in 5th grade, and we went all the way then with her all the way through my senior year when I went to Wesleyan to play volleyball. And then I hurt my knee really as a freshman in high school, but re-injured it as a freshman in college, and I really couldn't play anymore. And then I transferred over to ISU to start my teaching college career. And then, like I said, as a senior, then I came back to my hometown to take a coaching spot that was open, and I've been here ever since.
That's a part of it that's amazing me, is I didn't know how important and how strong the program was for that long. I mean, I know how important it is, since, my daughter was a little younger, just a year younger than your daughter. So I knew how important Hartsburg-Emden volleyball was, but I didn't know it stretching back all the way to when you were in 3rd grade, which has been a minute, right? And that's so that's
Yesterday.
Been a while. Yeah, right. And that's what's amazing. So, and I hadn't realized that you went to Illinois Wesleyan. So I will not. I'll do my best not to hold that against you as a Millikan graduate, and I will.
I did transfer.
But that's okay. It's a wise move. No, I'm giving a hard time. I like Wesleyan. It's fine, but it's a rivalry there. So you had the way you do it now at Hartem is you had guidance. You had somebody doing it the same way. From, like I said, from 3rd grade on up, to kind of so that was kind of the way a coach did it in that community. Is that correct?
Right. And really, it was the first time a major female athletic program became major. Before that, and, still in culture, it's boys basketball, boys baseball, boys football, so to have a major female sport in a school, especially our size, was a great role model. It was a great sport to be a part of, and everybody wanted to play. And when you have a small school, that's very important. We had a lot of success. My 7th grade year, was the first time Hartsburg-Emden ever brought home a state trophy. I was the setter on that team. There wasn't a seventh grade tournament at that time. It was only one. And so that was the first time we got a third place trophy. And that was very exciting. And then as a sophomore in high school, we won regionals and ended up losing in the second round of sectionals. But it's the first time that a high school team at that level had won a regional title. So just a lot of success, a lot of great atmosphere, feelings that everybody wanted to be a part of. And I just knew that that's the direction I wanted to continue. And I wanted young female athletes to continue that tradition as well.
You're talking about a school that size, and you're talking about the 2-class system. What was it like back in those years when you guys were making those first runs? What was your enrollment back then? Do you know?
I'd say probably around 90, 95.
Yeah, and
then you're
back
playing
then,
teams
yeah,
like
and
LaGrange, Belleville. Like, we had some huge teams at that point that were up near Chicago, down by St. Louis. And the only loss when our high school went in 82 was to the eventual state champions, and we're the only team that took them 3. So it's just kind of bad draw at that point. But
well, yeah, but it was still a great run. And you've got also, you're talking about now, even with the 4-class system, you're like Hartem's enrollment now probably isn't even that high, is it?
no.
What's your enrollment now?
I think right now we just registered at 56.
Yeah. And so even though it's only a 4-class system, you're talking about you're playing schools that are getting close to 300 probably somewhere, or no, 250 probably that's probably so it's still a huge difference.
Oh yeah, we just left Parkland Summer, and we did really well. And it was just funny because most of the coaches that are coming in there don't know. I mean, they know Hartsburg-Emden, but they really don't know the size. And so they come, and after I beat them, they're like, "Oh, but we only have like 170, and we're trying to play against teams that are like 500." I'm like, "Well, I have 50." What? Like, and I'm like,
this is every girl in the school. Basically,
everyone,
is what I brought with
everyone.
me. And
thought about bringing up some
yeah,
7th graders.
it's
I
not
can still beat you with them. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's fun. So when you talk about the success, and we're kind of hinting around at it, I really want you to I want you to talk to me a little bit about, for the those listening, and I would love to hear it. What are the numbers since you've taken over the program? Let's just your coaching career. What are some of the stats you've got for the success?
Well, school-wise, because Aaron and my husband, did some numbers because I knew I was getting close, that this past season, Hartsburg-Emden volleyball have won 1,000 matches. So I thought that was huge for our history and tradition. And we're talking from the 70s, so that's not all me, but that was a huge milestone.
Yep.
And then just about a year ago, I made the 700 mark. So as a coaching career, I've made over 700. If we're going to talk state titles, I just earned my 30th junior high state championship title this year, which was awesome. And then I have one high school state title as well from 2006. And I have 5 state appearances in the years that I've done it so far.
And that's pretty good percentages. I'll be honest, right? That's not bad. We'll take that.
One more than
and I know that. Absolutely, I'm sure quite like that. So when you talk about the 700, is that the junior high and high school together?
Just high school.
That's high school. And that's what I thought, because it have to be a lot more than that. 700 wins for high school. I don't even know how many junior high wins that would be, but it's a lot. Yeah, and I think that's, again, I'm going to lead back into that is why I was so important. That's why it was so important to me to ask you about the expectation level, because and maybe I'm wrong. I cannot believe that you coach every fifth grader like you do every high school senior.
Yeah.
Uh, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you do. I don't know. But talk to me a little bit about that age difference or how you break them into the system, if that makes sense.
Sure. And yes, obviously I'm coaching them, but the way you coach them is very different, right? Because your 10-year-old
Yes.
versus your 18-year-old are not the same person. Um, I really started as an assistant in high school, and Mike Swingle was the head coach at that time, and we came in together. And what I thought I knew coaching at 20 and what I actually knew about coaching is very different. So I really, really hold Mike in high regard, and I really am the coach I am today because of the things that I have taught for him. And we are still great friends. And he does his own business and lessons in Lincoln. And if I can't get through to the girls, like I send them to him. Anna went to him because, she wouldn't listen to me, sort of thing, down to the nth degree. So I'm good at what I do, but he is great at the very fine details that I just really am, so I just send him there. But I learned right away, if you're only going to have so many girls, you had to um, and want them to be a part of something, right? And to do that, it's got to be fun. And so right away, I started having camps. I started having club ball for the little girls so that they could just get to be a part of it, understand it. And I do an overnight slumber camp with girls first through fifth during Christmas. I put it in a way so that the girls get to spend the night and the parents can go Christmas shopping and like kind of have that time. So it works out really well. So they stay after school, and then we do pizza and snacks, and then we do all the different skills. And then we stay up all night and watch movies on the big screen in the gym, and they all bring their sleeping bags. And then so that's like their first real go at it. And they love it. They're there with their friends. And then we start in third grade getting them into week-long camps, to be with part of the high school. And I make all of my high schoolers come in and coach that with them so that they have that bond, because they look up to the high school girls. They go to all the games, they see them. So that
Absolutely.
interaction it's imperative that they have that relationship. They want to be them, right? Like that is what they're looking forward to. And then we start, pretty serious in fifth grade. So I do a B team. So if anybody isn't quite ready to compete at the seventh grade level, they're still getting lots of games. They're still getting tournaments. And it's a little less intense for those that aren't not necessarily physically ready, but mentally ready for that type of coaching, for that type of competition, that kind of stress, because I don't want to push them beyond something that they want to be part of because they're just not mature enough to do it. Now, I've got some fifth graders that are ready, but I have some that aren't. I have some in the past fifth graders start and win a state title, and some that just kind of are excited to be there. I'm just going to sit on the bench and cheer. And, they just want to be a
Yeah.
part of it. But, fifth grade is more about this is what these are my expectations. And then I will coach them. My assistants, who are wonderful, kind of take them, under their shoulder or under their wing. And then I have high school assistants that come down and help me practice. And then I let them practice with them again as that mentoring type of relationship with the girls. And then I will, because I'm intense, as you have mentioned, in the podcast with Anna.
And we'll get into that. Don't worry. We'll get into that. I know you look really nice and fuzzy right now, but we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And so I make sure when I am intense that I'm intense on purpose with my seventh graders. So my fifth graders hear it and they see it and they understand it, but it's not directed at them. And that is very on purpose. Like people probably wouldn't understand that, but the seventh graders are ready. They've done it. They're here. They've been in it. They've stayed in it. So they're ready to do it, and then the eighth graders get a little more intense beyond that, because seventh grade ball, I'm sure for anybody that watches it, is a lot less intense than eighth grade. Like, it's a major jump from seventh grade to eighth grade, and so it's a building process. So by the time they're in the hot seat, they understand that it's a place of love. They understand it's a place of support, a safe space. So even if I am intense, they know it's because I'm expecting what they can do and they're not getting there.
Yeah, I love all of that. I got I got like 4,000 questions on deck ready to go, just with the whole thing and everything you said. And I love the setup. So what we'll do is we'll get into we won't get all those 4,000 questions, but we'll get some of them going here in just a minute. Let me take a quick break for some commercials, and we will be right back.
All right.
Less than 1% of high school athletes ever become professional athletes. But as parents, we invest in their athletic pursuits because we know it's worth it. Sports build vital life skills. Confidence, perseverance, and the joy they bring are invaluable lessons from sports. But what if your athlete is facing the other side? What if anxiety, apathy, and sorrow have replaced the joy? Well, I can help. My name is Matt Toman, and I am a certified mental coach. And I understand the challenges young athletes face. I've seen mental coaching transform the mindset of many young athletes. It's not about turning them into pros, but nurturing their inner strength for sports and for life. At Mental Metal Coaching, we offer virtual sessions to help them tackle challenges, build confidence, and rediscover the joy of sports. Every young athlete deserves to thrive. Mental Metal Coaching, facing adversity with a smile. Coaches, empower your athletes to overcome adversity with the Mental Metal Academy. Teach them to face and conquer hardship without adding extra pressure. Visit the link in the show notes and enter the code METTLE, that's METTLE, at checkout for a special listener discount.
And we are back on the Mental Metal Podcast. I'm here with my guest and friend, Coach Jennifer Hayes of Hartem. And we are talking about the expectation levels expected for different ages for her volleyball players in her program. And I loved how I love so much what you talked about the camp over Christmas and just like having it be fun. And I just think that's phenomenal. But then you said, hey, things start to get serious in fifth grade, which is, I know that you're serious when you say that, but I'm quite certain that some people are like, that's when you get serious. Like that's not even when we start thinking about being serious. So what are your expectations for girls at the fifth grade level coming in?
Well, I'm a really good evaluator of talent, I guess, is a good way to put it. So I kind of know what the expectations are for each player. And I have a parent meeting prior to the season starting to try to explain as much as I can, especially to the new parents, that fair and equal are not the same thing. And I try to explain how that works in my world, so that they don't get all worked up. Now, granted, they still get worked up, but I at least have tried to lay the groundwork for that, right? So as I've evaluated these girls, most of them since kindergarten, I know what they're capable of. And I'm gonna push that envelope, because greatness doesn't happen inside a box, right? It is pushing them beyond what they think they can do. And that's my job. And, my job is also to understand to what extent that I can push them without breaking them. But oftentimes it's like a bone, right? You got to kind of break to grow back stronger and figure out that I can do it. And it's painful and it's hard and there's tears and there's frustration. But there's greatness on the other side. You wouldn't have 31 state titles without that. And you have to build trust first so that they completely and absolutely understand everything that I do is coming from a spot of absolute love. And that, yes, I'm pushing you here, but I'm also going to back you up in the real world, in the classroom, in your personal life. I'm oftentimes the first person they call when something goes wrong, and it's not about volleyball. Like, it's that relationship that's going to push them make success. So they know coming in, I expect you to serve overhand. I expect you to run these sprints in this amount of time. I expect you to listen. I expect you to work as hard as you can. And I expect for instance, your sprints are going to be 100%. Does that mean that you're going to win the team sprint each time? Absolutely not, because there's going to be girls that are just flat out fast because that's who they are. But I don't go by who's first. I go by whose effort is 100. And I can tell that, and they know I can tell that. And so the expectation is, one, to make sure that they understand that I'm going to ask everything from them, but also to understand that I'm giving them absolutely everything of I am. And I would never ask them to do something that I'm not already doing with them. And I think that's a partnership that is very important.
Yeah, I love the thought that they come in to fifth grade and know they may not understand or know every expectation, but there's some expectations that are well drawn out and very intentional. If you've never played if you've never had a daughter playing volleyball, you've never done any young volleyball, like the fact that your girls are coming in at fifth grade and serving overhand, that is not a norm for most programs. It just isn't. And that was always amazing to me whenever we go play and you've got the fifth and sixth graders out there doing that. And it speaks to how expectations affect a culture. And okay, it's going to be hard, and I'm sure it's not easy at times, and just breaking those bones is tough, but doing it lovingly, and I love that. But it's, how much of that did you have to develop when you first started? Was it 30 years ago?
Yeah.
You've done it for 30 years now?
My first head junior high job was in January of 94. And then I took over the high school program in fall of 95. And really I had to start from scratch. Mrs. Miller, as I had mentioned before, did a great job of coaching and really set up the culture. And then one of her former players that was teaching in another district took it over for a year and moved on. And then we had another coach beyond that didn't, thought they did. And it was unbelievable how quick you can ruin a good thing by not having any knowledge whatsoever, like at all. And so when I came in,
it's funny though, the way that you say that, it's not surprising at all. When you it's amazing. It's not amazing that you can mess up something when you don't know what you're doing. That's that's actually pretty easily to believe. Yeah.
Right. And so when I went to one of the junior high games and watched, let me preface this by saying, when I came back to watch an 8th grade game in regionals, we lost to a team I had never in the history of school lost to. Like, you had those teams, right? That should be the automatic win, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that I had 8th graders serving underhand because he didn't know how to teach them correctly overhand, and they were missing too many. So he went backwards. Now, preface that to understand that these same 8th graders that I had as seniors 4 years later, that I took them to the super sectionals for the first time since 1982, in just that amount of time, and lost in 3 to be able to get that first state berth, and we were 34-2. And he had him serving underhand in 8th grade. Like, what is happening? So I said, okay, I don't know what I got to do, but I can't watch this. And so when you start then and have this meeting, and you sit and you stand up in front of like 30 sets of junior high parents at 20 years old, and they look at you and are like, what are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do? And, and you have to set that boundary right away. And one of my rules is that if you have a problem, with me, that's fine. Come talk to me, but you have to bring your daughter. because what your daughter is telling you and what the actual truth is probably isn't the same. And then I'll bring my assistant and we'll discuss it. And then I remember one of the parents stood up, like straight out in front of like the whole audience, and was like, what if my problem's with you? And I'm like 20 years old. And I said, well, since I don't know you, you don't have a problem with me unless it is your daughter. So yes, you bring your daughter, I'll bring my assistant, and then we'll talk it out. Are there any more questions? And that just set the whole tone of, she means business. We're not going to cross that line. And here we are, I mean, it wasn't smooth from then on. I mean, don't get me wrong, but
Oh no, I would not believe you if you told me it was. I get that,
right,
but it's a great first option for or first chance for you to like. All right, here we go.
Here
right?
we go. Like, all right, first meeting. I hadn't even stepped in the gym yet. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, well, that's why people quit, right? But no, so that's kind of where you started. And the biggest things for me is you're fair, and you're fair to your best player, as same as you are to your manager. Your expectations are the same. The rules are the same, and it's unwavering. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you can sit, we can talk, and there's always some extenuating circumstances, right? But that also goes from fairness and love, which goes back to fair versus equal. But as long as I can defend myself at my inner core and ethics, then everybody understands that. And that's really where it has to come from.
Yeah. So what are those? I mean, what are those inner core non-negotiables for the program that does not matter if you're the manager or the fifth grade bench or the star player for the senior, state run team?
So I'd say my core, and it's written up, it's a contract. They got to sign it, whether they're a senior, whether they're a fifth grader. Here's what we're about. Practices are mandatory. You're not missing. It's a commitment. Understand that if you are in dance or if you're in piano, that's great, but this comes first. And if it doesn't, understand that your playing time will directly reflect that. And that the only real exceptions of missing practice are illness, that, I'm going to believe you're sick, right? But until I don't. And then we're going to have a conversation. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, are you?
No, hey, trust me. I get it. I understand.
Right. And
it's funny.
Yeah. And that we start at this time, we end at this time. You're going to be there. The things that are mandatory. And that's an absolute. And if you miss practice and you're inexcused, then before you show up, you're going to run for every single minute that you missed, because you're disrespecting me and you're disrespecting your team. So you either want to be in or you're not. And that's straight up. There's no negativity. If anybody is going to yell or revisit what you need to fix, it's only coming from me. Absolutely. The minute there is negativity within the team, they're running bleachers, they apologize, they figure it out. If there is a team captain that sees an issue, then they will absolutely come to me, and then I will give them kind of a direction on how to handle it, because we really try to handle from within, because I can't be on the court, right? You've got to have that relationship amongst players. So it's not necessarily negativity versus expectations to hold their teammates accountable. But they can't have any social media of any sort, or they're automatically off the team. They know that. That's a negative.
Hold on. Talk about, what do you mean by no social media?
They can't post like on Facebook or TikTok or anything else that, the game and and the coach and it's automatic. You're done. Like, I'm not dealing with it. So if you have a problem, come talk to me. But we're not going to put that dirty laundry out there. We're not. So if you have a problem, again, come to me, but we're not putting it out there. I'm not dealing with all that, because in the way that social media, coaches already have it hard enough with everybody coaching in the stands, which I get. You have your opinion. You're wrong, but you have your opinion. And if you want an explanation, I guarantee you, I'm going to give it to you, and I'll be very, very honest.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
prior to them coming in, I'm like, understand, I'm going to be careful what you're asking, because I'm going to tell you
Yes.
exactly. And sometimes they don't want those answers, which is fine. It's their daughters. I mean, and that is 100% very different, and that's okay. And I'm very respectful, and I'm very honest, because there's no use in making someone believe something that isn't true, because that's where false expectations start happening, right? And so you've got to be honest with
Yes.
that.
Yeah, and I've always felt like, and they're good coaches, they're bad coaches, some are better, and I get it, but I always felt like the one thing a coach always has going for them is they are looking at things from the perspective of the entire team, which means they're looking at what's good for the best for the team and best for every individual. And a parent is simply just looking at what's most important for their kid, which just gives you a completely different perspective on it. And it's why those conversations are difficult with parents, but while it's always, I never felt it was hard to have those conversations, because you just have a different perspective, and your logic is a little more sound. it just is. Yeah.
As parents, we love to joke about how our kids have selective hearing. Talk about ice cream or Christmas presents, and they are all ears. But ask them to take the trash out or walk the dog, and suddenly it is like you do not exist. I know it may not seem like it, but your child hears your voice. Just make sure that your words are worth listening to. And now, to learn more, you can join me in my webinar on how to use praise to raise mentally tough athletes. It's a guide for parents, and you can learn proven tips that will cultivate a positive attitude and a growth mindset in your young athlete. So join me for the free webinar on August 28th, 2023 at 7 o'clock Central. Look for the link to register, and I hope to see you there.
The Mental Metal Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Quick Cut. Quick Cut is the new alternative to Huddle. It's no secret why Quick Cut is the fastest growing platform in the country. Their video analysis platform has everything you need. Plus, you'll get triple the storage at about half the price. And now get even more when you use the promo code 50hours for 50 hours of free video storage. Make the switch. You'll be glad you did. Visit quickcut.com today. Welcome back to the Mental Metal Podcast. I'm here with my guest, Coach Jennifer Hayes of Hartem Volleyball, the highly successful Jennifer Hayes and highly successful Hartem Volleyball. And I really want to talk I want to go into the crazy. I'm going to be honest. I've seen, when I was, so I got to know you a little bit, and I put this on the podcast, so it's no secret here. Like I did some of the mental performance coaching with your daughter, and honestly, I know that the first time you reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think I might have you work with Anna," I was like, I don't even know how to handle this. Like I've seen you coach, and I'm like, and the texts I was getting from you did not match what I had seen of you. And I was like, this is, you get what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And, what people?
Yeah, and
Coach Hayes is
and
very
my wife,
different
even my wife,
Jennifer Hayes.
Absolutely,
right? Like it just
100%. And I told my wife, I was like, hey, I got a contact, or I'm talking with Coach Hayes, and she was like, you mean that lady with the stag tattoo on her calf? And I'm like, yeah, her. And she's like, okay, let me know how that goes. And, so it was just very interesting to see both sides. But I really want to I hope you don't use me. Hope you don't mind me using the word crazy, but.
No, it absolutely. Yeah. And especially from the outside looking in. I mean, I've seen some videos. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I was an intense coach, and people would give me a hard time, and I had parents yelling at me, but I don't even hold it. I'm not even more close. So, but it's good for me to know that at least some of it is intentional.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it's all intentional. I don't know how. What?
If I
so speak to that a little bit. How much? Yeah.
If I coached as intense as
Yeah.
I actually feel all the time, I would only yell. And so it took me
So
a
this,
long
so what we see is the holding. What we see is
I'm
the holding
holding
back.
back. I'm holding back. Yes.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
if you have some of my younger players, and that's with anything, right? So from my young days, they're like, "Oh, you're so soft," and that would never be what happened to us. And oh, you guys have it, and you've grown. So I'm like, no, I've just grown wiser. For everyone to
Mm-hmm.
think you've lost your lid all the time isn't a great look. And I haven't changed internally at all, but you grow and you mature and you figure out what it is each team needs. And really, society has changed a bit since I started 30 years ago.
A
And
bit. Yeah.
it has. And
Yeah.
they say that kids have changed, but kids haven't changed. The environment in which the kids are raised has changed. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
change with it, you're not going to be successful. That's just how it is.
Mm.
Not that they didn't, but I mean, you see a lot more with kids' anxiety. You see a lot more of internal depression. You see a lot of
You're talking about why I do what I do now, and
right,
especially if I can
right,
interject here, is I see it a lot with the female athletes. It's not
yes.
like it's not, it doesn't, but it's worse with today's female athletes, and just the self doubt, the
There we
anxiety,
go. So
and
the
the
self
I,
doubt of um, what they can do and who they are is so much more prevalent now, at least outwardly, than what it was when I started. And so there are still obviously the athletes that want the nose to nose in your face, like get it together, and there's others that you do that, which is the majority right now. I would lose them in an instant and never get them back. Last a year ago, after COVID, the first time that I got my seventh grade team back to the state tournament, right? Because you had COVID and we were on the cusp of, in my mind, getting a seventh grade state championship and a possible eighth grade state championship. And COVID shut me down 24 hours from going. And it was a great group of
yes,
girls. And then the next year, they didn't have a postseason at all. So you lost that. They got to play a season, but they didn't get a postseason. So then you fast forward to a
right,
third season. Now my um, fifth graders are now seventh graders and never had that opportunity in which to compete, to be under that kind of stress or pressure. So you talk about building. So like the seventh graders had a great chance of winning state in 2020, and the fifth graders on the team would have been a part of it, not started, but been a part of it, understood it, felt the tension, felt it. And then they're like, oh, this is how you do it. And then everybody moves up, right? But when you had that gap where the seventh graders, fifth graders are now seventh graders that have never done any of that and we're going, I mean, I had 14 girls from fifth grade to seventh grade on that team. And literally during that state finals game, every single one of them cried. Every one of them, from my star
it was
to my water
a
bottle girl. I
yeah,
mean, they were all crying. And I was looking at my assistants going, what is happening? I mean, I hadn't yelled at them because I knew how fragile their mindset. So, I mean, like,
yes.
never in my life would that have happened. I had a couple, that would cry, but oh my God. So just trying to teach that beyond that is just a new world in general.
Yeah, I mean, I loved what you said that, hey, yeah, because I have people ask me about it. Well, I don't know what's wrong with kids these days and society and blah, blah, like that. And you can sit there and we can debate the reasons if you want to, but we'll still be in the same situation.
Right.
It's not, we're
It
not
doesn't matter
fixing
what.
anything.
Here we are.
No. And yeah, but we can probably do something about ourselves to help others in that situation, which is
Absolutely.
what I'm trying to do. And I love to hear you say that because they've been through enough already. They didn't need yelled at in that situation.
No.
Things
Well, I
have been
wanted
enough,
to.
right?
Right.
I know. I got you. So then how is it, how does it progress from that junior high expectations and that level of intensity as they get into high school?
Um,
Is there much
Obviously, the
difference?
expectations are higher because I know what they have done and what they're capable of. They're more mature. I um, allow less shenanigans, I guess, is the best way to say it. Like, just as they get older. Um, but what I really like about our culture is by the time we get to that level, your upperclassmen have been through it. They know what they want, they know the expectations. And a lot of the times, they're going to take care of those things, like those expectations of here's where we're at. We're 100%. We're 2.5 hours a day. We're getting in, we're getting out, and if there is um, anything that needs to be altered, I'll start at the captain level and be like, pull them aside, because usually it's either they're not pushing hard enough or they're not making the others accountable, because it's always better to go internally than it is externally. And then if I find that that isn't kind of working, or I see some problems with the mix, I'll send my assistants in and be like, hey, here's the problem. And you need to rectify this, because you tell them if they don't with you, it's coming to me. And nobody wants to have that conversation with me. Pull them into the coach's office and say, I'm like, hey, I want to talk to you. And they're like, who's this? You don't want that. So
it's interesting to me is like what you're picking about, what you're talking about there is in those situations where you're like kind of figure out what's going on. You're not talking about skill stuff.
oh no, gosh, no. By high school, man, they've got it. Like we're in it. So I can make a skill set great, right? Like I've got that down. And anything that I find that there's a glitch, because everybody has a glitch, right? Everybody has individual um, ticks, right? They just do, because everybody's different. And so if my job is to take what you're bringing to the table and make that great, I think a lot of coaches try to say, here is what we do, and you got to fit into my mold. I take what they're great and make them the best they can be and figure it out how to make that work in our whole. And I think that's kind of what sets me apart a lot. A lot of coaches will come in and say, here's the defense, here's how it works, here's what we're going to do, and this is where you're going to fit. And it just isn't successful because you don't have those pieces. And when I have legitimately 15 girls, of which probably 4 are considered natural athletes, like I can't do that and be successful. So I might have my setter set out of the middle because my outside hitters are stronger than my middles. So why would I waste a middle hitter when I don't have it and separate my blockers, right? And everybody's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm winning. Like that's what we're doing, right? You got to make you got to make it work for what you got. And so that's kind of where my philosophy is much different than most.
Yeah, I think that there's two things I'm picking up that I know for a school your size, and we're going to say it again. You got 56 kids in the high school, which means you've got 28 girls in the high school, and you
Yeah.
need how many on the team?
Right.
How
Well,
many? How many you got on the team?
like 15 on both rosters, so 30. But I've got I've
Yeah.
got
So,
them
so,
all for the
so
most
you
part.
you literally have them all, right?
Right.
So there's two things you do. There's two things you do or don't do that you have to do to be successful, and I don't need to have the conversation with you to know this. One, you can't constantly be losing players because you don't have
No.
the numbers to do that.
No.
So that's one. And two, what you just said, you have to adjust to what your kids are capable of if you want to be successful. You could say, no, this is how we do things. Well, you can be good one year and then you can be not good the next year. And that's the way you appear. And, this is when you are so intense. And when I say intense, I'm like, I've seen you call a timeout and you don't even wait for the girls to come to the huddle. You come to them on the court, right? That type of
Yeah,
thing.
we call
So
that
when we're
level
that
3.
kind of intense, that's a level 3. Okay.
Level 3, when
And
I'm calling it and running out to the middle of the court, and you don't deserve a drink of water, so you just listen here.
I love it. So when you've got that level 3 going on, it's easy to look at you as the coach and be like, look, it's my way or the highway, which there are aspects of that, but then you're also flexible enough to say, oh, I'm going to have to do it this year differently because this is what this girl's good at and I need to
Right.
do differently. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that for young coaches, because a lot of them be like, well, I'm going to play always this way. And if you're, I don't know, if you're a college program and you're recruiting
Right.
whatever
Then
you
you
want,
can.
I guess you can do that, but
Right.
you can't do that.
No.
So this level 3 stuff. So the school that I was at, the schools I was at, we have a really good volleyball program as well, and we're a little bigger. So did we get level 3 a little bit more often? Whenever it was Hartem playing DMAC.
Oh, um, what's crazy is that I honestly rarely prepare for another team, if that makes sense. I prepare my team to win, regardless of who it is. And so my expectations for every game is straight up the same. So if I'm playing, let's say DMAC, or I'm playing Delavan, or I'm playing St. Thomas More, my expectations are always the same, always. And if I don't see it, that's when it's going to go. And my level 3s are because, one, I've already talked to you. Two, I've already had a timeout and was like, hello. And three, it's still happening and I am honked, right? I am out of my mind and I have lost it's coming. And you know what? The fact is they know it's coming. So that timeout is coming and I'm going out there and I'm grabbing elbows and we're getting in this nice little circle. And, as you can tell, like in this podcast, I can talk, so I can roll it and it'll come off. And usually it comes off really pretty good. So my voice
And
is
what's
very
interesting
loud.
there? Yes.
And so when I'm like talking, people I know from other teams or other parents will be like, we come to the game just for those timeouts.
Yeah.
And once I start, the whole gym is just silent. And my voice is
I know.
booming at what I'm saying. And then I can hear my voice echoing. So then I just have to grit my teeth and I talk to them and my eyes get really big and I tell them and I shake, or I'll kneel down so that nobody can actually see my face. But they all absolutely know in that 60 seconds, the thunder is coming.
Yeah. What I love about that is when you say, but they know it's coming. If they didn't hold up those expectations and weren't doing what you asked, and you didn't interject with a level 3, I feel like they would be almost more disappointed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They are the most distressed when I am so mad that I sit on the end of the bench and I grab my water and I cross my legs and go, you go ahead. You got the answers. You go right. I'm going to sit over here. And when you're ready to join this game again, then I will too. But right now, I am done with you. And they are just mortified when I say nothing. They know, we come in. And like I said, I've had several parents of mine will talk to me and be like, they had friends from DMAC come talk to them, or Illini Central. And they're like, how do you ever allow your daughter to play for her? And they're like, we wouldn't have her play for anyone else. She's just screaming.
Yeah.
But I never, ever screamed from a demeaning or an angry place. My voice is intense, but my message is always positive. you are better than this. I want you to tell me right now that you are great. And I make them say it, that I will get this. I will get this. And I will not let that ball drop because I am awesome. And I mean, I'm yelling it because it's intense, but
Right.
it is always from inspiration. It's never negative. And my girls know that, and my families know that. I mean, how it may look from the outside, but I don't care how it looks from the outside. What I need is
I
what I
and
have, and it works, and they know it, and they wouldn't want it any other way, and I couldn't coach any other way, so it just kind of works.
I think that's great. I think it's exactly. But as you've said here, I mean, this starts from you. They know you love them because they went to a Christmas slumber
Right.
party with you when they
Well,
were
and I
first
teach,
graders, and
and and I
yeah,
teach with them over at the grade school. So I have them from the first day of kindergarten, and I'm loving on them and I'm hugging them and I'm high fiving and I'm going into the rooms every day. And, we're knuckling every day. And then I go into recess and, I'm playing volleyball with them down there at that level. That makes it super fun. They want Coach Hayes
yep,
down there. They all call me coach from kindergarten on. So it's that relationship of
yep.
safety that allows me to be intense where they're not scared or feel bad.
So, what's the end result? I love talking about how athletics are the case. There's a case to be made for athletics done right, or how we develop more mentally tough individuals that are more prepared for life. And I'm not at this point talking about state championships, coach. What's the end result that you see? You've done it for 30 years. You've had a lot of girls go through your program. What's the end result?
My end result for them is to be great people, right? And in a world that is harder for females, to be strong, to be successful, to be confident, and to understand no matter what obstacle that they may have to get over, that they've done it. They know what it is to dig deep and have that grit to be successful in anything. I mean, we play a game of volleyball, but I'm teaching them life. It is the fact that they see what I do and the impact that I have is all about success internally and confidence internally, and to get over the hard parts and know that they can, and that they can rely on themselves to be able to be successful at anything that they do. And if I give them that option to stand on a podium, to be successful with a medal around their neck, to know how hard work and dedication works in that arena, that they take that with them for the rest of their life, to their job, to their family, to their mental health, to their happiness. Like, they're able to do that. It's not a key in someone else's pocket, that they own it and that they're able to do that for themselves and take that into the world.
Ownership of their own confidence that is
Absolutely.
I mean, that seems it's not based on what somebody else is doing or saying.
Right.
It's I own my own confidence, which is, and I mean, the fact that you're able to see those girls go on and be able to be like that and do that is just phenomenal. And I'm sure that's why 5 year, 30 years into a 5 year career on it, why you're still doing it.
Right.
And and your daughter, oh, I'm going to coach till my daughter's done. And then it's we're 4 or 5 years after that. Right.
Yeah, here
So
I am.
it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. Last question. I always
Sure.
ask, what did I miss? What did I miss? Tell me what a good podcast would have asked you.
Um, Gosh, I think that the only thing that we miss is how important the game of volleyball and my interactions with each player and person in the district is. That I love to win. Actually, I'll preface that by saying I hate to lose more than I love to win. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is
Mm-hmm.
like my driving force. And to try to, what is more important than coaching? It is the relationships that I have, that, I've got X amount of girls that are coming back to me that are coaching their own programs now. And they are building the game, right? They're building those relationships. They're making the world better. Like if I'm at the top, well, really like Mrs. Miller's at the top, right? And then Mike Swingle. And then what we have done to grow the game is so much better than any wins or losses or state trophies. And that how do you become a good coach, whether you're intense or you're quiet, is to love your players, to love what you do, and to do it in a very positive way that it's safe and it is successful. And I think a lot of people miss that. They think it's wins and losses, and it's not. It's about relationships.
Even though you do say, I really would rather win than lose, it's still about the relatitionhips.
It is.
Yeah,
And how we deal with that.
It is. It's hard. It's so hard, right?
Right.
We all, yeah, I understand how important it is and what you want, but I don't think successful coaches, what I mean to say is, I don't think coaches are successful by focusing so much on the winning. They are successful by focusing on the relationships in hopes of getting the wins. It's counterintuitive sometimes, but I really think that's where it's at. I don't think you get 700 high school wins because people don't like you. I don't think it works well that way. Right. So, Coach, it's been, it doesn't happen that way. So, Coach, it's been a pleasure, and I can't, we'll talk again sometime, but I'll keep an eye on, and practice starts next week,
next
right?
Monday at 6:30 a.m.
Next month, 6:30 a.m. in a hot gym, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah.
I tell this all the time that everybody talks about these football players and these schools, and they're like, oh, we got to do this for the football players and make sure that they're and because it's hot outside, and it is, and you have to do all these things. And we would take these at DMAC, we would have these breaks and say, oh, these players could only practice so long. We have to get dressed. And meanwhile, in the hot gym, the girls are in there sweating like crazy and just keep grinding. And I'm like, I would rather be outside getting some breeze rather than be in this stuffy gym. And kudos to you ladies for going and doing that, because it's not easy. So,
but we love
all right,
it.
Coach, any last words? Yeah, I know. Any last words?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
You bet.
And I love it. I love your podcast. Keep it going.
Awesome. Will do. Thanks, Coach. We will talk to you soon.
Less than 1% of high school athletes ever become professional athletes. But as parents, we invest in their athletic pursuits because we know it's worth it. Sports build vital life skills. Confidence, perseverance, and the joy they bring are invaluable lessons from sports. But what if your athlete is facing the other side? What if anxiety, apathy, and sorrow have replaced the joy? Well, I can help. My name is Matt Toman, and I am a certified mental coach. And I understand the challenges young athletes face. I've seen mental coaching transform the mindset of many young athletes. It's not about turning them into pros, but nurturing their inner strength for sports and for life. At Mental Metal Coaching, we offer virtual sessions to help them tackle challenges, build confidence, and rediscover the joy of sports. Every young athlete deserves to thrive. Mental Metal Coaching, facing adversity with a smile. Coaches, empower your athletes to overcome adversity with the Mental Metal Academy. Teach them to face and conquer hardship without adding extra pressure. Visit the link in the show notes and enter the code METTLE, that's METTLE, at checkout for a special listener discount.
Welcome back to the Mental Metal Podcast. And I know I said it several times and I keep talking about it, but if you've never seen Jennifer Hayes coach, it's hard for you to understand what I'm about to say. And that is that she is such a great example of what I'm saying about you can have these hard expectations and you can push these kids and you can still be worried about their mental health and how they how they deal with adversity. You can do all those things successfully if it comes from a place of love, it comes from a place of respect, and they know that you care about them. They will walk through fire for you if you're doing the same for them. It is what I talk about this podcast. You don't need to, there's going to be adversity. And your goal is to, as a coach, is to help them walk through it, not just find extra adversity. And it's all how they perceive that. If they see that you're on if you're on their side, they know that. And they, like I said, they will do things for you and become better people for it. So she's a great, I see so many of the coaches I talk to, I know that's the case. And she's just a great example about it because she pushes them so hard. But I know that she's bringing them in when they're kindergarten, whatever, and doing sleepovers with them. It's like they get to know her. And I think the best phrase that she had was that she said that the hot seat is a safe place, a safe space. And if we've all been, if you've played sports, you've been yelled at by a coach or been really like, it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like a safe space. But what she's saying is they know where she's coming from, and they have to know that she wants the best for them. And when she's getting on them, she's wanting what's best for them. That idea of, I need to break your bones first because you have that frustration, but greatness is on the other side of that frustration. But that before we can do that, you got to have that trust, and your love is really shown. Another thing that I love that she saw was talking about that expectations from fifth grade up. If you're going to come in and play Hartem volleyball when they start, sanctioned for the school at fifth grade, here's the expectations, and you need to be ready for that. But she's teaching them those skills at the third grade level on up. So having those clear expectations, it's difficult if you're a new coach and you're coming into a place like that. And she talked about it. It was tough for her at first, but if that's what you want to build this culture, you have to have expectations, and people have to know what those are. And it's going to be, even for you, it's going to be the broken bones first, and the program might need some broken bones first, and then you can grow a little bit, but you have to have those expectations. And I love that the fifth graders come in and know the expectations, like some physical expectations of what they're going to be, held to. And I think that's very important for building a culture. I say it here all the time here, is that expectations and intentionality and purpose, that's the key to getting a lot of things done. And I also love what she talks about those non-negotiables. Like we're not going to have any negativity unless it's coming from me as criticism. We're not going to air our dirty laundry. We're going to work together. We're not going to add extra fuel to a fire. We're not going to make things worse. And having a contract for you, again, that's that intentionality. What I really started to hear towards the end was, for as tough and loud and abrasive as she can be, just how flexible she is on a lot of things. And when you think about it, she has to be. As we've said before, like, we're talking, this is not an exaggeration. Basically every girl in the school has to be on the volleyball team for them to field a team. And they don't just field the team, they win a lot. And for her to do that, you have to be very flexible. And she talked about it with the state of the world today and how things have changed. And I get that all the time. And I hear it from parents all the time and from coaches who are like, well, these kids. Okay, well, you can keep saying that until you're losing and out of a job and feel terrible. Or you can figure out what you can do about it and what you can do to help them and help these kids get over all the pressures they see from from others and social media and stuff like that. Find ways to help them through that. Don't just complain about it. And it's easy to complain, but to find a way to help them with that. And then also the way she's talking about how she has to change her volleyball program every year to fit the personnel. And I know coaches that are like, this is what we do and I don't want to change it. And she has no choice. And she changed. So you can say she builds a culture, but she has to change the strategy every year, which really speaks to the idea that I didn't coin this phrase, but I hear it all the time, is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's true because she has the culture, but the strategy changes every year. But with the culture, she can change the strategy every year. That's not what matters. It's the culture and the expectations. And that to me is just great to hear, especially when she hates to lose. She loves to win. And that's really clear if you watch her coach, and she even admitted it. But when push came to shove, she talked about at the end. I love what she said. She wants those girls to have that the key to their happiness does not reside in somebody else's pocket. And that's, if she didn't win any games at all, that would be a commendable statement and a commendable program. But you know how it is. Like, you have to, you still want to win some games and you have to stay employed to be able to have a program. But she's done more than that. And the fact that she's winning the games, winning state championships, and having young, confident girls come out of her program and face life, you got to tip your hat to her, no matter how crazy she seems sometimes. So great to have you on. It's just a lot of food for thoughts, and yeah. So yeah, that's the end. That is the Mental Metal Podcast, and I can't wait to see you next time. Until then, I've been your host, Coach Matt Toman. Thanks again for listening to the Mental Metal Podcast, produced by Coraggio Media, sponsored by QuickCut, a video management platform for every level of play, and by Mental Metal Coaching, helping athletes learn to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. The Mental Metal Podcast is created each week to help players develop more mental toughness, and that is something that will help all of us. So help me out and like and share the Mental Metal Podcast with your friends. Until next time, keep forging your metal.